What's up, legends? Welcome back to the Fitness and Business Podcast. John Salmon here. Got another episode for you guys, and today I'm joined by Steve Pastor. How are you, mate?
Very well, thank you, John. Very well. Thanks
Very good, very good. Thanks for joining the show today, mate. We're going to have an awesome conversation about fitness and business, because that's what, if you're new to the show, thanks for landing on the page. If you're a returning guest, glad we added enough value at some point in the past that you've returned. Fitness and Business podcast and program is geared towards men in business, and the mission is to get you fit, healthy, and strong, and help you develop an appearance and a presence that you're proud of. So I'm joined by Steve because I previously had only an audio podcast, and it was just like on Podbean, on Spotify and Apple. And I was like, I really need to get this thing on YouTube and start doing videos, obviously for content. I really need a neon sign. And I Googled it. I'm pretty sure you guys popped up on sponsored first on Google. And I was just like, obviously they're, spending money on ads and probably doing pretty good, probably deliver a great service. And that's where this thing came from. So, and why we're here today. So, mate, you've had a really cool change I've seen on your Instagram along your fitness journey, probably the mindset journey with that as well. So I'd love to dig into that today. But for anyone that hasn't heard of you, drop the line, tell us what you do and about Kings of Neon, mate.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a dad. Dad of two kids. Awesome. So they're 9 and 7 now, actually. Just turned 7. So boy, girl mix, 2 and done. All good there. So I think that's important to set out that I'm a dad first and foremost. And then, so born and raised on the Central Coast. I've moved around through different jobs, going from retail, real estate. I've worked in the mines. So I've had this sort of varying change of careers. The last one before Kings of Neon was actually a DJ of all things. And this is how Kings of Neon started.
Yeah, wow.
Then in essence, Kings of Neon. So we're 4 years young, 4 years old, a little bit over now. So Kings of Neon, we sell LED neon signs, illuminated signage across the globe. So that's it. So predominantly customized. So we work with a lot of businesses, small to medium businesses. So we've got a team in the US, we have a team in the UK, and a team in Australia, sort of servicing those clients. So
great.
Yeah.
Very cool, mate. Very cool. And I guess to kick straight into like the fitness journey, I'll lead with I naturally stalked people's Instagrams and look along the journey to sort of find some questions that I can ask that are relevant, and notice that you have done 75 hard, from what I can see, a few times in a row, and you probably still have elements of that in your lifestyle. And I could see from the photos you've had a huge change physically, which, like I mentioned, will obviously comes with such a mindset upgrade, which is what a lot of people, especially in business, when they're trying to be competitive and do long days and build big things, it's really important that they look after their physical and mental body and health. And so I'd love to just hear about your journey without too much prompting, just like what triggered that, and just, give us some take the reins, mate, because I'd love to hear about that transformation.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I was probably in business for 6 or 12 months. And I think I was very much, like, I always talked a really great game, whether we're in the retail days or whatever it may be. I always talked a really great game, told people what I was going to do, was very much projecting the best outcome, but I wasn't really putting those words into action, so to speak. And I was still DJing at the time to make ends meet. So at one point I had 3 jobs. So I was sort of starting up with Kings of Neon. I was DJing on the weekends, and then I was working at a gym in sales, not in PT or anything like that. And in essence, it's just the business started to grow a little bit, and we had a okay, this started off as just being something that could be a side hustle, and we had an okay quarter. And because I was so new to business, I didn't really understand it. I got my first like decent sized bass bill, and it was like 30 grand, right? And I was like, what? Like, I have literally like 37 grand in the bank. I've been working my ringer off, and I'm just going to go and give it all to the tax man all of a sudden. I was like, what is going on? And I actually went into this really massive mental slump probably
Yeah,
for
right.
about a week and a half. And very much in my personality, I'll get like almost like a tax to a certain degree where I'll just go into this really negative mindset.
Mm, mm.
Not to the point that I couldn't move, but I'd be very depressed for, weeks on end. And I started going to the gym, and a mate, probably 6 or 12 months prior, he told me about Andy Frisella.
Mm.
And he's like, "Oh, I reckon you'd love him." And I didn't take any notice. I wasn't listening to podcasts, wasn't reading books or anything like that. And I was just at the gym one day, and actually just did a gig on that prior weekend, and like I ripped out my shoulder, and it was like I was just in pain, and then I had all this like negative sort of mindset around money in my head, and just trying to figure out what the hell I was doing. And I put on this podcast, and it was almost like Frizella just jumped into my soul and just like ripped me apart. And just, I'm not sure if I can swear on here, mate, but
Go for it.
yeah, he's just like, don't be. It was like, don't be a fucking bitch, just go and do it. And it was
Yep.
like he was talking about obviously the program. He was talking about the next phases as well,
Mm,
about
mm.
cold showers. I was never a guy that would do a cold shower, and I finished up the gym and I jumped in, did a cold shower, and then that was kind of the start of it. I was like, you know what, like, no, I'm gonna give it a shot. So
You heard what you needed to hear at the time you needed to hear it, and it kicked
yeah,
your ass.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah. Awesome.
yeah.
That's so
Yes.
cool.
Yeah, so it was very much from there. It was like self-discovery. I called it like changing your DNA, like because not that, like I was into sports, and I played a lot of sport when I was younger, but through a professional career, there wasn't any sport. It was all very much driven towards business. I'd be active here and there, but it wouldn't be anything really defined. So I'd do the odd running, I'd do the odd kind of 14K, for City to Surf or something every year or two, and that'd be about it. So, very much went on that journey, started doing 75. I was rewriting sort of who I was, and just really soaking up everything to do with Andy Frisella. I probably went into too much of a lock and load sort of stage, especially with kids and a wife. It was just like I was eating and sleeping. But I think it was really important for me at the time, because I knew if I was going to take this business seriously and get to the next stage, I didn't have necessarily the smarts, and I guess the ability or a mindset within to take it to the next stage. So I knew that I had to learn. I knew that I had to go to this next level. And in essence, I was like, well, this is a little structure for me. This is something that I can actually stick towards.
Yes.
I'm very unstructured in my life. And then it just started to tick along, and all of a sudden you see these compounding results, and you get a bit of confidence from it, and keeps going and keeps going. So
Totally.
yeah.
Totally. Yeah. That's really cool. And as far as the challenge of doing something like 75 hard goes, what did you like, for example, and if you don't, it's okay, but did you have a specific amount of weight that you lost, or something tangible that you sort of went through that changed physically? Because obviously if you compare two photos, you can see a very clear difference, but
yeah, for sure. So I started, I think it was about 96 kilos, and I got down to 83. So it was about 13 kilos during that journey. So it was, I'd say it was more exercise related than food related. But, I wasn't someone that always drank a lot or anything like that. I was probably too addicted to sweets. I remember, love sweets. So I was like getting like packs of lollies and sticking it in my face, just to test it. It's like, nah, you don't need this anymore. So
can I resist?
Yeah, can I resist? Yeah, exactly right. So, but yeah, like it's just, yeah, obviously that part of it, like the 13 kilos was massive. And for me, it's just the confidence. It was like, oh, actually, I don't have to just say what I'm going to do now. I can actually put things in practice and action it. And then all of a sudden, all these great things started to happen. All these amazing stuff, all these opportunities started to pop up, and business started to flow. And we hit our first 100K month. And, it was like, oh, wow. Like, it was like, it was almost too like, what's the word for it? It didn't seem real that all
Mm.
this stuff was happening all of a sudden. Just
Yes.
but it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like, but it was directly related. The fitness and the journey and the discipline was directly related. So yeah,
That's awesome, because that was going to be sort of a flow in. It's a good segue to my next question is
yeah,
what there's the no matter what it is, there's always like there's a term you've probably heard. The method always has to adhere to a principle. So if you're trying to lose weight, there's a heap of different methods, but it adheres to the principle of not eating more than you need and staying fit and healthy and maintaining a good physique, for example, or gaining weight's the opposite. But
mm,
like there's that side of it. The thing you did was 75 hard. That was the method. But on the other side, I'd love to get some feedback on. And if it was a while ago, I apologize.
no,
To
it's
dig
fine.
into your brain,
No, it's fine.
um, like because these are the good lessons that some people need to hear. And I hope that if you're listening, that maybe it's maybe Steve's the one that's the for your Andy Frizella, where you're just like,
Mm.
oh, I really needed to hear that. But what did you notice in the day-to-day running of your business and or life and family when you locked in and just went, I'm doing this. I'm training twice a day. I'm journaling. I'm sleeping well. I'm eating well. Like I'm doing all these things from a habits perspective, from a like just how you showed up mentally in your business. Did you notice a change, and what were they?
Yeah, it's huge. And just for context, I am still a fan. So I just was doing 75 hard. I got to about day 40, and and then I failed. So it's very much still part of my routine and how I go
Yeah,
about life.
awesome.
Yeah. So look for me. Yeah, there was a bit to unpack there. So in essence, for me personally, I'm erratic. Like people look at me as like I'm a bit of an erratic guy. Like I'm the
Sure.
sales guy. I'm a little bit like sort of in your face. I'm very direct. So the
Yep.
directness has probably got me to where I have been because I'm willing to
Yes.
have harder conversations than
Yep.
most.
Yep.
But everything else about my life, I'm like all over the shop. Like
Mm.
arrive late to places. I, make
Hmm.
promises that I don't keep. But all this sort of stuff. And
Kind of
then
like what you're saying before. Sorry to cut you off about
yeah, go
like,
for it. Yeah.
yeah, what you mentioned that before about you were sort of coasting. You're like having a
Yes.
crack, kind of, but not fully in it.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. But then all of a sudden, I was like, oh, I can't actually drink the amount of water and do 2 workouts and get a decent night's sleep if I wake up at 7 a.m.
Yep.
And then because I value family more so than the rest of it, I still wanted to drive the kids to school and still wanted to have
Mm.
elements of that part of my life. So it was like, well, hang on a second, I'm going to have to wake up earlier now so that I can, 5:30 to 7 or 5:30 to 6:30. They're not doing any, like the kids aren't actually,
Mm. Mm.
they're not awake yet. So I can get things
Yeah,
done. I can get that portion of my day out.
for
I can
sure.
read, you know, and do a workout before they wake up and still be, a good dad in my eyes. Um, so it was very much a structure first. That was
Mm.
the biggest win for me. And that's what translated into business. And then that accountability. So typically I would say a lot of things, but I caught myself. I was like, well, hang on, if I'm saying it, then I'm going to have to do it.
Mm. Mm.
So yeah, each part along with it, I think it just pushed me in different versions of the business. It gave me the confidence to probably go a little bit harder and a little bit faster because I'm seeing all these other wins throughout my life,
Mm.
and I'm a big avid believer. Whether it's sort of universe stuff, but if you're good karma out into the universe. So if you're putting a lot of good out there,
Mm.
you're
Mm.
projecting a lot of good. I was talking very positively about my journey and my
For
experience
sure.
and inspiring others, which created a different environment around me, and it just compounds.
That's awesome, man. That links in so well to one of the parts of the framework, I guess you'd call it, in fitness and business, which there's 5 different ones, and it's kind of like a board of directors for your health, well-being, life. Not just people have them in their business, but they don't have them in their life sometimes.
Mm,
And that's your people, your environments, and your tools. And that, like the conversations that you express, the things that you pull into your ears and your eyes, the people around you, that whole network of stuff you're exposed to. If it sucks, then the outputs that you have are going to suck. But if they're really amazing and your inputs are amazing, then how can that not be effective? So that's kind of, what, again, it's like another layer of behind fitness and business. It's like when you work on these habits, amazing things happen.
Yeah. I think as well, the big thing for me was like, I had an analogy the other day where it was like, just because you want a Ferrari doesn't mean you deserve a Ferrari. Like everyone wants a Ferrari, right?
Yeah.
And I think, especially with fitness, it'd be guys and girls, but we're both guys, but we'll look outwardly and see guys at different ages that look really good. We look on social media, they're fit, they're healthy, they've got it all together, and you're like, why don't I look like that rig? And it's like, so to bring it back to the Ferraris, because I haven't done the work yet. It's very much, and we want to just go and jump to the Ferrari straight away. We want to everyone thinks that there's this magic Ozempic pen or whatever it is, right? That we can go and jump on and just grab it straight away.
Put that in there and it's done.
Yeah, and it's done. And it's just not, it's not realistic.
For sure.
And yeah, it's just that compounding effort over those 75 days that starts you to go, oh, you know what? It's actually time and effort and those habits that will get you those results. So
100%. And it's so, regardless of if it's from a place of, it's just observation. So whether you look in the mirror yourself, if you're listening to this, or you, Steve, or someone else looks at you in a photo or in person, not just from the vanity perspective, but from if someone's fit and their skin's healthy, their eyes are clear, there's all these telltale signs, they didn't just get that. You can buy a Ferrari, you can't buy the health. You have to do the work every single day. And so that's awesome that, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because it's just so cool to see people performing highly in their business, looking after the family, doing all those things, which we know take a lot of time, effort, work, there's a lot behind it, but also maintaining their fitness and their well-being. That's really often missed. And mate, what's what challenges do you notice now that you've built such a strong routine around, training specifically, but even from a journaling perspective and just across body and mind, looking after yourself, when those behaviors drop away, where do you first notice it?
Sometimes I see it in the business. The business is actually, I call it 4 weeks delayed. So if I start on a journey and, say if I'm 2-3 weeks in, I almost know that week 7 and ongoing will be really good. I've actually seen that now over the space of 3 years, where if I fall quite aggressively away, and it stays for a while because all these amazing things are happening, and typically because I push the business when I'm feeling really good, which we probably all do. So there's that element. It's just mindset. I think from a vanity point of view, I'll see it probably when it's almost too far gone. If I get out of structure. So earlier this year, or late last year, we had some sort of health stuff in the family. So that sort of stuck me off routine. Then I had Christmas, and then I went overseas for 3 weeks. So it was almost like this 8-week period where I literally went from working out twice a day for the 4 or 5 months prior, and then over that sort of 3-month period, it dropped away. And then all of a sudden there was this tumbleweed of effects where it wasn't, it was in the family, or I get a bit more frustrated, or it was a bit more short, and then some business outcomes that I probably didn't foresee ended up coming to a point, and I'm like, I wonder if I could have fixed all this if I just kept that routine rolling over those 3 months. So yeah.
Wow. Especially when you do understand how much it links to the positive outcomes. It's a humbling experience, but you can then see when what you've not done doesn't link to positive, or links to positive, negative outcomes.
It just
So,
gets easier. The coolest thing is it just gets easier every time you do it.
mm,
You can pick up on those little elements. Again, I used to eat sweets, loved the Doritos and dip kind of guy. Like that was
yeah.
as a nice little staple for me. And I reckon over the last 3 or 4 years, the first year I might have had it like 10 times. The second year I might have had Doritos like 5 times. That's 3 times. And now I'm like, it's not going to serve me anymore. And again,
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
just the continuation of it. You're going to fall off. It's really hard unless you're an athlete, in my opinion, to keep on it 24/7 every single
Mm,
day.
mm.
There's going to be ebbs and flows in life that sort of comes in between. But if you keep this core structure, a lot of gains will keep compounding.
100%, man. Mate, question. Got some more fitness and nutrition questions, but
Mm.
what's the hardest or most humbling thing that, because this sort of ties into what we were just covering, the hardest or most humbling thing that you've learned about yourself through your journey with business?
Ooh, hardest and most humbling.
Didn't put that one in my email.
Ooh, yeah, no, it's a good one. It's a really good one though. The hardest or most humbling. There's a lot of hard stuff. Um, I think to bring it back to business and startups, um, we very much think that we can do everything, um, and where it was probably really hard for me initially, it's become humbling, and probably the best thing is I realized that I'm actually only really great at one or two things within the business. I know a lot of things about the business. I
Mm,
can do a lot of things, um, but you have to sort of chuck your ego aside and realize that there is a million different people that are better at particular roles than you are.
mm,
And it was very much I ran the business not on purpose, but just by fear, that I was very controlling, sort of day in and day out. And I think part of that journey, it was very much just understanding that I'm not that good.
wow.
Yeah. I'm just like I'm a normal everyday human.
Yep.
I've got my
Yep.
flaws.
Mm,
You
mm,
know, there's a raging honesty about it where you just have to kind of go, you know what? It's like, yeah, you know
yeah.
what? I'm probably pretty shit at that. So, um, I think it's not sure. Outside of that, it's just rewriting my scarcity mindset into an abundance mindset,
Mm,
where
mm,
where where that's part of that DNA that I was talking about. Growing up in a household where money was always very much an issue,
mm,
you have a tendency to run business like that. So building confidence within me as a human,
mm.
through fitness and eating a lot better, I've been
That's
able to sort
awesome.
of back myself a little bit more. So yeah,
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. I love those lessons because it's just like, holy shit.
yeah,
Like,
fair, yeah,
the next question I've got is, because we talked about 75 hard, and you were saying, I think you said you got today 40 or 44 or something, and then it's tapered off. So
yep,
obviously, there's points in time, regardless of, and again, this comes back if you're listening, that there's so many methods you can do. Biggest advice is just bloody pick one and get started.
yeah,
However, um, because you'll just work it out on the way and find your way. But for you, Steve, day 40 drops away. Have you worked out, and I'd love for you to share, like that baseline that is consistent, that can happen, that you do all the time around fitness, nutrition, wellness, sleep, just the key, whether you've got 1, 3, 5 fundamental
yeah.
things, if I just do this every week, this works. What are they for you?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say probably over the course of 4 years, I'd say 85% of my
Mm,
day somewhat looks like this. So um, I typically wake up now between 4 and 4:30. I find that when I wake up, it'll give me time to, now that I have an overseas business,
mm,
um, I I just have to be around for at least that half an hour just to check and make sure nothing's sort of broken.
For
So
sure.
I'm up at that time. I'll quickly check that and go through that little bit of business stuff, and then I'll roll into journaling, reading 10 pages of a self-development book. I'll probably do Wim Hof about 3 to 4 times a week. So practice breathing, and then I'll exercise. So at the moment, typically I was always in the gym early, and that was probably where I was living and the functionality. I'm a bit closer to the beach now, so I'm going for 6K run and then finishing up with sort of 10 minutes in the ocean. And
Awesome.
that's just a nice little sort of zen. So I'm getting a little bit of cold therapy in there because it's
Sounds
winter.
tough.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, it's tough, mate. And then and then for me, it then rolls into sort of taking the kids to school and coming into the workplace a little bit earlier. And then to finish off the day, I just make sure that I typically go to the gym. If I'm feeling really great, I'll bang it out and do a hard session. If I'm not, I'll sort of roll out the muscles and do a bit of a half. So very much the first times, and when I was going through 75, I flogged myself every single day and went really hard. For now, and the stage of business and growth I'm in, I'm just trying to regulate that a little bit more and just be mindful and making sure that I get that sort of 7.5 hours sleep and whichever else. But yeah, the first time I did 75, I was like, wouldn't matter if I got 3.5 hours sleep or I was out walking or running at 1 a.m. It wouldn't matter.
Just get it done.
Just get it done. So yeah.
That's cool. Thanks for sharing that, because for someone that doesn't have any idea of this and they've landed on this conversation, like having that, that frame or that structure to be like, right, they're the kind of the baseline things that I can probably start to look at and things that I can do to get the ball rolling. Like it doesn't need to be something as intense as 75 hard. That worked for you, but it might not work for the other 46 people that hear a conversation like this. So,
awesome.
What, when you said you hit for day 40 and it dropped off, was that a business impact, a physical injury, a family thing? Like, because you mentioned some family stuff before, was that,
So
my next question was going to be, what doesn't work for you? Like,
so it was last week. So, so I went to Sydney. I was actually on a TV show. I can't tell you which one, but I went to Sydney. So that morning, woke up, still went through that whole structure and drove to Sydney that day, but on a TV show, and it just wrecked me emotionally and just physically. And I was like completely a wreck. I got back from Sydney at sort of 8:30, 9 o'clock.
wow.
And I just sort of went, I could push through this. And it's probably a little bit of maturity to some degree, and knowing that I'll just jump back into it tomorrow. Like I'll jump back into it the next day. It's not like I'm not ruining myself by missing one workout kind of thing. Because I'd already built out those structures over the last sort of 3 or 4 years. So yeah, that was the case. It literally was like a bit late, wanted to see the fam, bit emotionally spent.
Yeah. That's cool. And if you don't mind me prying, I can cut it out if you prefer not to.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah,
and I'm conscious you can't mention the show, and I look forward to watching whatever it was.
Sure.
I'm sure it'll be great. But from a becoming emotionally wrecked, that happens to loads of people in business. And I believe that being fit in body and mind, if you for you in a fit and healthy state, would take you have far more resilience than someone who does not do any of those practices and look after themselves at all, which there's hundreds of thousands of them globally. And so there's also plenty of people that do, but I'm trying to help the ones that aren't. And so when you say like, I'm emotionally spent, and you go, is that a change like you were talking about earlier in the brain where you're just like, this is just too much, like it's overwhelming?
Yeah, so it was probably it was a new feeling that I hadn't necessarily experienced. And going back that 4 years, I said, even if I had a little issue with money, I'd be done for a week or two. Whereas this one here, and admittedly, I probably would have gone home, had a beer, because that's the typical thing you do,
Yeah.
have a beer, relax,
Yeah.
get out the Doritos and dip, and just relax, right?
Yeah.
And
I deserve this.
yeah, I
Yeah.
deserve it. Yeah, very much, I deserve it. And for me, it was just like got home, spent time with the fam, had some water,
Mm.
and went to bed early. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was, and then I was still up at kind of like 5:30 in the morning, and still
Yeah.
went for a run the next day. So, yeah, it was very much. I think there's a lot of things that we take as social norms in life, and
Yes.
because we don't see a lot of people around us doing it, we just think that's acceptable or that's the norm. So if you have a tough day at work, the norm is to go and have a drink after you finish out. Like, it's like the tradie finishes work and goes has a drink, and it's like, well, no, because then you're going to have a drink and then you're going to be worse off for it. It's not good for your body. It's not good for your head. And then if you try to run a business with, that's growing with 20, 25 employees, how's it my right? How's that acceptable that I'll turn up to work wanting the other 20 people in here to be absolute superstars, but I
Yeah.
rock up looking like a fucking idiot because I couldn't deal with my emotions the night before and decided to have 6 drinks. It's like, it's just kind of from that whole leadership point of view. If I'm not the gold standard,
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm letting the team down. So,
Mate, that's so good. That's such a gold nugget and thanks for sharing that. It's kind of where I was hoping to get,
yeah.
because it's the decisions and the little habits and little behaviors that it's too easy to have the beer, the red wine, the nose beers, the whatever people are into. It's far too easy to make those decisions and take the easy road. And it's harder to have a drink of water, be present with the family, get a good night's sleep and be like, I'm having another crack tomorrow. I'm back in the gym. Like, it can be a little bit harder. However, the longer term impacts of that are so much better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't go back 5 steps. You might go back a quarter of a step because, you might not do your normal routine and things like that. But, not written off for 3 to 5 days or a week
Yeah.
and having to start again. So,
100%. Yeah, mate. That's awesome. What, for someone who's like been listening to our conversation and is like, oh yeah, sounds pretty cool. Like fitness, eat well, blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who's just sitting there having a listen, is like on the fence about starting to look after themselves physically and mentally?
Without sounding like Andrew Tate, um, because you kind of love or hate him, but I just think it's like it's your fucking responsibility. Like, I mean, I don't know. I just want to live a big life. If you don't want to live a big life and you couldn't be fucked, then don't bother. But I want to live a big life. I want to experience things. I want to do things. I want to achieve things. I want to see what's behind that next curtain. I want to feel the rush of driving a Ferrari one day. It's like, for me, I'm like, I just kind of see things and I'm like, well, why can't I do that?
Yeah.
Like, what's stopping me? And like, typically it's like, well, because I am where I am for a reason. It's because I haven't learned something. I haven't developed myself in a certain area,
For sure.
whatever it may be. So it's like if you want a bigger life than where you're currently at, then isn't that a reason enough? And if it's not, then look at the people around you, because as much as you don't want to admit it, you're probably letting them down by not being the best version of yourself. So,
Mate, that's a few real gold nuggets there. Like, it's so true. It's
it sucks. Like
Yes.
it hits hard. Like, and you can't have that conversation. That conversation hits differently to different people at certain times, and I wouldn't go and give that advice to someone that's been out of fitness for 12 years. I just like, it's just like step one. It's like, go for a walk in the morning.
Yeah.
Just go for a
100%.
walk, fresh air,
Start moving.
start moving. Like, and then probably just set a goal. So for me, I decided to do, because I've always said I want to do 100 kilometers in a day, like running, moving, whatever. And I've never
Yeah.
done it.
Yeah.
And like 3 weeks before my last birthday, I said, fuck it, I'm going to go and give it a shot. I did like little prep. I was just going to the gym at the time, so it wasn't running at all. And so my last birthday, I got to 55 Ks and body cooked out and whatever else. But so I've got the next sort of annual coming up next week. And for me, it's really helpful where I'm getting at there. It's helpful to have a goal 2 or 3 months out.
Big time.
Whether it's physical, to do with your business, something that you can sort of compartmentalize and work through.
Yes.
Then I think that's a great sort of stepping stone.
100%. How old are you, mate?
It's going to be 37.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's awesome. And you're having a crack at the 100 next week. Is that right?
Yeah. Next Friday, the annual. Yeah. So,
so you're just going to do that every single year
every year on my birthday. Yeah. And just,
Till you nail it.
Well, not to like, I think I'll just do it every year. Like it's just,
yeah.
It's just a reminder to me that, I don't know, do hard things.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Challenge the mindset and.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Mate, that's great. We've covered, because we're both direct people, just get the words out. Like we've covered all the questions that I had sorted is just like nailed. So is there any other sort of things that popped up while we were having this conversation that you're like, yeah, this sort of popped into my head, but I didn't mention it before?
Probably the only thing that relates and it relates to you as well is you just don't need to have all the answers to begin with, and sometimes it's good to either find a mentor, like someone that's done it before, or look for someone in your life where they don't have to have it all together, but they might just have elements together. So if you're just getting into business and you know a really good businessman, go spend a day or two with them. Someone in, around health and fitness, go spend a day or two with them, immerse yourself in their routine and what they do and how they got there.
For sure.
And if all else fails, or not, just look outwardly, the right coaches and support is out there. I've used coaches through my journey in business and fitness as well. Not necessarily all the time, but to spark motivation and give myself structure. It's been really handy as well.
Yeah, that's awesome, mate. And it's a really good point, because back to the conversation before about something that's humbling, like admitting that you don't, sometimes it's the hardest thing to do is go, I need a hand with this, because we can get stuck in like, I think I know and YouTube can tell me, but it's like YouTube doesn't know you. No. And whether it's business, fitness, nutrition, whatever it is, like people that can genuinely get to know you and say, Steve, this is your next thing that you need to work on. Like that business, fitness, whatever, it's so valuable. Yeah. It's so valuable. Yeah. So, yeah, that's awesome, mate. Cool, man. Mate, I'm going to, unless you have any other comments or anything, I'm going to wrap us up, because that's a ripper 40 minutes of
cool. Mate, I'll probably just start going rogue after this.
You and me both. When you said before, you're like a little bit here, a little bit there. That's me as well, mate. So
yeah. Actually, you know what? It's probably, whether you cut this out or not, it's completely up to you.
Run it. Go for it.
Back on the Ozempic thing. So many guys are curious around peptides and steroids. Mm-hmm. And I know I might be going off route here, but I was like I thought that was like a magic drug. Yeah. Like fully, between, making sure I had all the supplements, all the whey protein, everything in my life, all this sort of stuff together. I was like, to go to the next level, I need to have peptides. So I started taking peptides. I felt a bit better. I was like, it's not enough. So I tried steroids, and I was like, I was like, went through this journey. It actually messed me up.
Yeah. Wow.
The steroids. And I only ended up doing it for sort of 5 or 6 weeks. And probably the last 18 months, I haven't touched any whey protein or anything in that whole world. I try and eat super clean.
Yeah.
as healthy as I possibly can, fresh food,
Mm.
and I don't feel like I need any of that. And it's that sort of quick win mentality
Mm.
that I think a lot of guys get stuck in, where
Yes.
it's like you think that everyone else around you is doing it, and there's a lot of guys that are doing it, but it's not, unless you want to be, I don't know, like Arnie, like, which really none of us really want to be. Like,
No. No.
there's really no reason to sort of go down and start messing with your messing with everything inside you,
Hundred
just to
percent.
get that little sort of extra 3 or 5%. When just like the habits
Yes,
and eating really clean and not
dude.
drinking, it will get you 95% of the way. So
Big time. Thanks for sharing that and bringing it up. I know it's a vulnerable thing to share because it's so personal, but I've got some questions on it. But I just wanted to comment before how sometimes you have a thought and then
yeah,
it ejects itself. Like because I've had clients ask me about it as well. Like, should I do this to lose weight? Should I do this to gain muscle? And there are a few people that ask those questions. Should I try these drugs? And like, you're going to take it forever? No, just for a short time.
mm,
If it's not a forever thing, don't worry about it.
yeah,
That's my just baseline advice. And I'd love to know, when you said it messed me up, was that physical, mental, or both?
both.
Yeah, right. What'd you notice?
Acne.
Yeah.
So I'm only coming actually really good now. So I'm like 6 9 months. So I was like 0,
Hmm.
and it didn't happen while I was on a cycle. It happened probably 3 or 4 weeks after,
Sure.
and
Mm.
it just like it wasn't fun. And when you think about confidence and
Yeah.
everything about you, it's like for me that hit my confidence. Um,
The drop away from having it and the impacts of it, like
yeah,
from the
yeah,
confidence.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Drop away. Mentally, like I couldn't probably like put my finger on it, but it was probably more just the fact that I was going into it. I was curious, and I think it's always good to sort of, you know,
Mm.
feel out that curiosity if you're open to it. But
Mm.
don't get me wrong, I was literally training twice a day. I was running 5 10 kilometers. I was
Mm.
working out in the gym. Like I was sore. I was like, is this the unlock?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where that curiosity lived. But
Yes.
I wasn't eating that well.
Yeah.
Like I was eating solid, but I wasn't.
Mm.
I wasn't really looking at what sort of proteins I was getting in my life and whichever
Yeah.
else. So it was just like, um, yeah, it was a bit false in the end. And I've only now realized by going on this sort of eating journey how
Mm.
false it
Mm.
was. So yeah,
Wow. That's really cool that where you're at now. I'm glad you're like you. It's funny. Sometimes people have this curiosity where the curiosity will just overtake them and they'll genuinely, excuse me, believe. And not a lot of people are happy to talk about it like you just did either. It's like this hidden secret, but they'll have this curiosity of like, maybe I'm not as fit as I can be because I haven't done that.
mm,
Maybe I'm not as healthy, strong, haven't got the business, the car, whatever people are into from a materialistic perspective. I haven't got that because I haven't tried this,
mm,
and it can become excuse making. And if you're listening to this, here's a dude running a global company with heaps of staff, by all accounts, quite successful. Congratulations, by the way, Steve.
thank you.
And has locked into a fitness journey and has tried some drugs that he's just like, this is shit. Like,
Yeah,
and gotten rid of it. So if that's the narrative or the excuse that you're listening to and you're running, like, that's not the reason. It's you haven't made a commitment to get fit, healthy, and strong. That's it. You know.
yeah, yeah. I actually really like your play. It's like if you're gonna do it forever,
Mm,
and it was just something that you know, a few people come to mind just locally that are businessmen, and
mm,
they're massive. Like
yeah.
as humans, they're huge. You can tell they're on it.
Yeah.
That is their image. If you
Mm,
want that to be your image, and or you believe that image is tied fully directly to your success. But I run a neon company online.
mm, mm.
Like I don't need to be jacked.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. So it
um,
comes back to the performance, the family
yeah,
man, the
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And with the waywarding kind of emotions and hormones and whatever else, if
Mm.
anything, it probably makes me worse in business.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. And so, mate, when you have to jump off, just give me
no,
the
that's
nod.
fine. I'm good.
From a nutrition perspective, what changes have you? Because you said before I wasn't focusing on my nutrition.
Yeah.
What changes have you made, and what do you do now?
Again, curiosity. I've tried everything.
Yeah.
I unfortunately watched the Netflix documentaries. At the start of my 75 hard journey. Now knowing a bit about it, I probably never would have gone on it. But so I started the veggie side of things, and I've kind of literally tried a bit of everything.
Mm,
I'm
mm.
like the Mediterranean diet. I'm just trying to work out my body, what makes the most sense. And I've landed on the last sort of 12 months around a carnivore diet, which is, yeah, just predominantly ate probably 5 to 10 things, majority of the time. So
Yeah. Yeah.
slab of meat, bit of avocado, eggs, cheese, like honey,
Yeah.
you know,
Simple.
simple, yeah. Bit like fruits that are that don't have skin on it. So I'll have watermelon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much the basis of where I feel the best.
Yeah.
And I've noticed predominantly I held a lot of inflammation in my body.
Yeah.
So like now, so you look at the last 50 days, I've ran outside of 2 days, I've ran 6 kilometers in the morning. Prior to, I used to try and run, and I would run one day and I would be so sore that I wouldn't be able to run until 2 or 3 days later
Yeah.
because of the amount of inflammation. And I just like I can go every morning now.
Mm,
Like
mm.
so, just really focusing. I've just noticed it's the grains, probably certain vegetables and things like that probably jam me up.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. And mate, there's so much merit in having a simple diet. Like
Mm,
it's unbelievable. The general like advice that I usually give people, and obviously it gets very specific once I start working with them, but is
yeah.
if it grows on a tree or it comes out of the ground or it once was an animal,
Mm,
eat it.
really?
Like and make up 90% of your diet with that, and
Yeah.
you'd be pretty set. And it's very hard to overeat when you're consuming those foods. Very, very hard,
Yeah.
you know. So
Yeah. Yeah.
chips and
And
dip
look,
on the other hand.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And look, I'm not like I, I'm not an advocate of like do not touch anything else and like
mm,
red
mm.
meat, kind of jam it down your throat. Like if I go to the in-laws' place and they've got a curry in front of me, I'll
Yeah.
eat a curry.
Yes.
Like it's fine. I
Yeah.
like I know that it's not going to affect my life, but just 80% of the time, I'll
Yes.
stick to a certain structure. So
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And when you like coming off trying steroids, like what were the I had my question sorted in my head, but I lost it. I guess what I'm trying to understand is um, when you made the switch from not doing that anymore, what changes did you make to your nutrition? Obviously, you have a very specific thing now. If you weren't focusing on it, you probably just were putting in whatever you wanted, right?
yeah, so that's so it was kind of November last year,
Mm,
October, November last year. And then a bit of the FAMO stuff happens, and then Christmas, and then overseas
mm.
trip. So it just went nowhere. I was in France, so I was literally baguette, cheese, and honey life sort of thing. So, and then I got back and I reset and I had a look at it. Went and did
Mm,
started another 75 hard. Obviously, with 75 hard, it's like learning about um, or choosing a diet.
mm,
And I
mm.
had a friend at the time who actually was a vegetarian. Um, and he went and just switched completely and went to a carnivore diet. And he goes, mate, he's like 50 odd.
Yeah,
I think he just turned 50. Apologies. Um, and he's got the body of a 30-year-old,
yeah.
and
Wow,
he's killing it. And he goes, mate, this is the best and leanest
that's
I've
awesome.
ever felt.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, let's give it a go. So I just went through on the journey, found a few people that probably would inspire me on the journey through YouTube or Instagram,
Mm,
whichever,
mm.
and learn a bunch about it. And then
That's so cool.
trial and error, I think, is the. I don't think it's a one size fits all for everyone, but
Yeah, yeah. But it's just finding your way ultimately, like
yeah,
whoever you are, like finding the thing that works for you. So,
exactly. Yeah,
uh, earlier you spoke about the lag, the 4 week or 7, it's about 7 when it shows up.
yeah,
Post that experience with training, using some gear, and then coming off of that and having that shift back
mm,
to business and who
mm,
you are as a person physically and mentally to lead the team and do the things you got to do every day.
yeah.
Did you notice a link there of the I won't call it the downfall, but like the dip, I guess you could say, from I'm stop using this, I'm now being affected physically, mentally, I'm going through that almost identity shift of
Mm.
probably shrinking a little bit and those changes that you see and feel, did that have a lag? If you can you remember that?
Yeah, so like November, it's around Black Friday. So November online typically is the biggest month
Mm,
for us. We had an amazing November. All this sort of compounding, all this great stuff happened, and interesting, a really great December. I probably jumped off that journey around the 15th of November.
mm-hmm,
December gets a little bit muddled for us because it is a quieter time, but we had a
mm,
really good month, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. I then went overseas, and it was okay. But then, yeah, literally January, February, when as a business we were typically growing between 20 and 40%, we actually dropped money in January, February. And I had another business, which probably wasn't set up for the right reasons, but
mm, mm.
that ended up closing down in that period too. So
Yeah.
in that February, so we had two really down months, closed a portion of the business, um, and then had a massive sort of restructure, recycle of staff because of in and around that business too. So it almost like those sort of 8 weeks, 7, 8 weeks
Mm,
ended up being and turning into a rebuild. Um, and I started training again around the 20th, 15th, 20th of January. And so all of that change ended up happening probably mid to late February. So, like, if you
yeah.
look at that sort of
Yeah.
model there, where it's like, I did all this work, there was a bit of a lag, it got us through to Christmas.
Mm, mm,
After Christmas, it turned to shit for
mm,
sort of 6, 8 weeks. And, in the middle of it, I realized and noticed. So I'm like, no, I've got to get back on the horse
mm,
here. Got to
mm,
sort of leave from the front. Wasn't happy where I was at, sort of physically or emotionally, and
mm.
then made the right changes to make sure that sort of December and January wouldn't happen again. So
Man, that's so interesting. Thanks for sharing. And again, if you're listening, that's not always going to happen. So I'm not trying to draw reference to the fact that if you don't go to the gym, your business is going to be crap,
no,
because
no,
that's
no,
not the case.
no, it's not.
However, it's good. You've like Steve has just like covered off on the self-awareness that for him, he's found the importance in sticking like to fitness, nutrition, sleep, and all the things that you mentioned before do have an impact on how you show up for your business, and that you do see a negative impact. And I'm yet to find someone that does look after themselves physically and mentally, or starts to, and does not have a positive impact on their business in some way. Like, and
And
if you're
that's
listening, tell me, because I
yeah,
want to know about it.
and that's a really like
Mm,
I've got a good friend that I used to work with, and he's built an amazing business. Five,
mm,
ten
mm,
times bigger than what I've built over this past 7 or 8 years. And unfortunately, he was in a very fit and healthy mindset when he
mm,
was younger, but went away from that completely and is in a very like mentally is quite down in that area. Like you can
mm,
see that he doesn't exude much confidence, but he is so smart and so good at business in his particular niche that he's grown, literally,
Yeah.
an almost 9-figure business
Yeah.
in that period without doing all this work.
Wow.
And I sat down with him the other day. I was like, can you imagine if you looked after this
Yeah.
as well as you look after your business? Like, he would be probably one of the most successful entrepreneurs, in my opinion, in Australia.
Yeah.
Just because he's got such an amazing ability. So it's not taking away from the fact that it's like, yeah, you can be great at business and do zero towards your health and fitness.
100%.
But there is an amazing argument to say that if you're great at business without focusing on your health and fitness, you probably would be freaking exceptional if you
100%.
If you focus on both. So yeah.
And there's a line someone said to me ages ago that stuck with me, and I share it now often. And it's that a healthy person has a million wishes and a sick person has one. And you just can't buy your health. And so you can have hundreds of millies in the bank. You can have the fleet of cars. You can have the houses and whatever. Like, generally, and I say this very generally because I know it's not always true, but often with success comes that growth in those material areas as well, right? And I know that because I speak to these guys all the time. And but when their family or them become unhealthy, it doesn't matter how many zeros are in the bank. It's like you still go to the same hospital, you're still in the same bed, you have the same care, like there's only levels to that, and there's only so many. So like, I always encourage people, like, just lock in and get healthy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you just have to look at, I find it really interesting, like Jeff Bezos or Zuckerberg, right? They weren't like, these are like highly intellectual people. Like, I don't think fitness was ever on their radar, like ever. And then they're like jacked right into, their health and fitness journey, kind of after the fact. And it's like, like, there's something in that. There's something in that where,
they've realized
on that journey, they've realized. Yeah, for sure.
Totally. That's awesome, man. Man, that's cool. Mate, that's an hour. And if you're still listening to this, thank you for listening. I hope you got some gold nuggets. I'll wrap us up. Steve, really appreciate your time. Thanks for jumping on the show. Any closing comments, mate, before I hit the stop button? Sorry, if you haven't shared, keep that one, whatever that was, keep it in mind, but also plug the business, tell people where they can find you, so that, if they've come from they'll land on yours.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So www.kingsofneon.com.au or .com if you're in the US or anywhere else in the world. And at the Kings of Neon on Insta if you want to see the work and
awesome.
that we do. So yeah,
right here.
yeah, exactly right. So definitely. Look, like we said prior to, it's like, if you're part of this on this journey, you got this far, listening to this podcast, it's just like, you want to be inspired. Just do something that'll make yourself proud today.
That's awesome.
With that. Yeah.
That's a ripper closing line, mate. That's good. I like it. All right, dude, I'm going to hit the stop button. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Appreciate it.
And I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, mate.